share the screen. I'm recording now. Are you seeing the sharing? I'm sharing. See that?
Not yet.
Don't give me permission to share now. So we are because before I click. Dominic, can you share the slides?
I could share. Okay. At least I can try.
Share before I was. Okay.
Does it work?
Yes, it works.
I want it bigger.
Yes, presentation mode. Okay. Thank you everyone for joining us in this Rolex meeting. Strange. Well, these meetings go through the note well, so be aware of that. You don't want to read it, but should be aware of the note well. Next slide.
Yep. I should have actually uploaded the document, and everybody could have scrolled for it. But anyway, go ahead.
Next slide.
I'll manage.
Yeah. Okay, this is the meeting material. Please add your name into the Etherpad. Next slide, please. Okay, this is the agenda for today. We are going to basically go through the status of the documents that we have the working group. There is a comment about the agenda. The capabilities and OPEs are going to be presented by Raul. And this modification by Georgios and a light information by Pascal. Next slide, please. Okay, this is our milestones. We have 4 milestones done, that is the IETF. And still we have to work on some other documents that we're going to mention. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay, about ODB repo, the authors submit the version 8 addressing the open tickets, 194 about the introduction, 195, 196, 197, 198. Needs as well if the document was about to be standard or experimental, the author preferred to be standard. Ticket 196 about replacing 6997, they relate the normative reference to that RC. But Alvaro gave some new comments over those tickets, and then we close those tickets and we open new ones, ticket 199 and ticket 200. So the action point with this document is the comments to be addressed by the authors that Alvaro made for them. Next slide, please. Okay, and I will leave. There is a several change here in version 17. There was at the F flag in the target option. There were deleting as well the anonymous header. As well, force DAOAC be as a rule. So, well, the CSLR no, but this can get a positive answer from the rule. Pascal, do you want to add something here?
Yes, actually, so the latest is 18. I introduced a typo in the formatting, so the IANA section is actually split by mistake, but it's just formatting. But yes, otherwise, the bottom line was the version, I guess 16 is the one that was sent to the asked for publication. But since we had this review by Raoul and we raised interesting problems, we ended up with this huge simplification because there was some leftover text which induced some possibilities which were actually not there anymore due to the fact that we are using non-storing mode for a rule in any fashion. So this allowed those simplifications, like remove the anonymous CIDR flow, which was always a pain in the neck since the beginning. So I'm happy that the ISG will never have to review that piece. I just erased it. And so it's much nicer now. We basically force the DAOAC and we force the use of the extended DAO option. And with this, we limit the cases and the flows and make things a lot simpler.
Yeah, and you add an F flag to indicate the full address. The prefix, the full address, the target option.
Yes, that's an additional optimization that Raoul asked for. And it makes a lot of sense. We use it in mobile IP, so it's not new news. So we just emulated here what we do in mobile IP, and it appears to be useful. So it's a side effect, I would say. So the new DAO option will have that additional benefit. In terms of protocol, we just removed cases. So we just simplified. We basically pruned the tree of possibilities.
Yeah, and
so I guess what worked before still works. It's just that complex cases are gone.
And as well as consequence, you update NPDAO since you extend to non-storing modes.
Actually, the NPDAO was already modified, just that the text was missing to say that we did. So part as well of the whole review was to find that the way we used the NPDAO was not consistent with the NPDAO draft, which was limited to one case. So we had to extend so we don't change it, but we extend its applicability to other flows, which is actually the expectation for the 6 flow drafts as well. So now the whole thing is consistent.
Okay.
It was fair to say that we actually extended the NPDAO draft for that. So we added text. But then again, we don't change the protocol or its activity. We just, here we actually say that we do something that we did, right? We clarify that we effectively do that.
And as well, you are, well, just the rename of the physical address registration option flag from arrow status to big number. You rename the first column of the table.
Ines, it's very hard for me to parse your words. It's breaking up.
Oh, sorry. As well, in the IARA, you add modifications like rename of the first column of the table from ARO status to bit number.
That's a pure editorial. Yeah, and there was an editorial mistake on the name of one field in one IARA section, so I added that. Then again, it's not changing functionally anything in the draft. It's just cleaning up basically stuff.
Thank you very much. So the action point here will be like we ask the community to review and comments. We kind of open it for like 2 weeks, and then we will send the email to Alvaro saying that.
If you guys like, I can fix the IANA section. If I get review commands, I will fix everything together. I understand that the button asking for publication was already pressed.
Yes, but it's in the queue of Alvaro.
Yes, exactly. So I just don't want to delay that document within that queue because we didn't add any function. We just cleaned up the one that existed.
Yeah.
So I just don't want to lose, those queues are kind of slow these days. So I don't want to lose the position in the queue, whatever it is.
No, I mean, I think we don't lose the position. We just request for comment.
Since Alvaro is online, maybe you can comment on that.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Álvaro.
Hey, how are you? So yeah, you just lost the place on the queue. You're going last now. No, yeah, so I'm still a couple of documents away from getting to this one. So yeah, don't worry about it. As long as there's not a lot of changes, and you're done by the time I get there, which might be a week or two, then I think we should be okay.
Yeah, I mean, if there is any more change, it's if somebody comes in with a review between now and then, right? So you're basically telling us 2 weeks from now, the doc needs to be frozen. So that's, I mean, reinforcing the call that Ines just made to the community, like, if you want a last chance to do any review or change anything in that text, now is the right time to say.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Published 19, as I said, there is this typo anyway in the structure of the INA section.
Thank you very much, Pascal and Álvaro. Next slide. Raúl, next slide. Dominic, please.
I'm typing at the same time.
Okay. Now, Raúl, please.
Yeah, okay. I hope everyone can hear me okay.
Okay.
So there has been one major change in the RPL extended control option that was added in the last version of the draft. Basically, one major thing that I missed out was the option type had I assumed that the option type had a secure bet on, and hence I placed the extended bet in the second MSP as where during Dominic's review, he mentioned why was it necessary to put it in the second MSB. That's when I realized that a secure bit is not needed for option type. So now the extended bit is moved to the first MSB position. That is only the movement of the bit location. One more important point that was discussed on the mailing list in the last couple of days was when we set this XBit, essentially what we're doing is we are reserving the number of RPL extended control options. So we have, if the option type is 256, by using the XBit, what we are saying is that we can have maximum 128 normal control options and 128 RPL extended control options. One of the things that Dominic mentioned was, if we are going to do RPL extended control options, and in the future, if we see that most of the time extended control options are going to be made use of, then why can't we set 2 bits in place of 1? In which case, the range could be extended from 0x80 to 0x40. So basically, what it would mean is 64 control options for regular options and 192 control option for the extended ones. So that time I thought maybe that might not be needed, but after some time, I realized that it is possible for extended control option to work as a regular option, but not vice versa. So it may not be a bad idea to actually set a bigger range for extended control option. Right now, the draft is what you can see in the picture, but if anyone has a specific opinion there about setting 1 bit or 2 bit for extended control options, let us know. Dominic, I hope that I've got what we discussed on the mailing list clear here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So basically now I think maybe it is better to use the range 0x40 to 0xFF for extended control options, given that any extended control option can still serve as a regular option, albeit with an extra byte, but still it works as a regular option, which is not possible otherwise. A regular option cannot work as an extended option naturally. Right. So next slide, please. So that's that about MOPEX draft. The next updates are about capabilities, and we have a major updates here. So we have been discussing about capabilities, queries, and response for all the time. So the latest draft update had added this feature. Basically, we now have a new message which can query capabilities and get a response. So basically, there were three things I kept in mind. Basically, a node should be able to query the list of supported capabilities, and a node should be able to query specific capability details. So these are two different things. And a set of capabilities to respond may exceed MTU. So if you're querying for all the capabilities, there is a good chance that all the capability list, the set of capabilities may not fit in a single MTU. So it might have to be distributed over transmitted over multiple messages. So these are the three things I kept in mind. Yeah, next slide, please.
Paul,
Yeah.
can I interrupt? If we start doing this, that's a question I had for the other draft. When we want to send something in multiple message, we don't have in REPL the capability to say 1 of 3, 2 of 3, 3 of 3.
Right. Yeah.
We don't know when we receive something in multiple message if we got all the messages. So I
Yeah.
cannot
So
do that in the other draft, but I was not very happy with that. I was wondering if we could think about having that kind of signaling in this draft for the responses we send, like in the generic format. Find a few bits to say which is the number of this, and a few bits to say what's the total number.
right. So Pascal, this is the major point which I had to think about more in detail. This apart from this, basically everything was much simpler to handle. So there is a handling that I've added for this particular aspect, how to make sure that if the capability set has been sent through 3 messages and one of the message gets lost on the receiver, how would the receiver know whether the second message or third message is lost? So this is something that I had in mind when designing this message request response. I don't have exactly the same format that you mentioned as to say using some specific bits. Let me go to the next slide and see. Let's see.
I'm not saying it's the right solution. I'm good. I'm happy that I wanted to make sure this discussion is triggered between the group.
Okay.
Just to let you know, it's related to your question on my draft, which is it's overly complex. And part of the other complexity is to be able to summarize the options that didn't change, so you don't have to change to send those in full, and you just change in full the one that changed. You see what I mean? So that's
No. It's
all this mechanism.
yeah.
I normally fits things in one message. But okay, go ahead. Sorry for the interrupt.
Oh, I'm so the other draft, the eliding info draft, basically talks about making sure that the version. You're talking about the version, right? I mean, that information is not a problem here. I mean, that I'm assuming we don't maintain a.
I will come back to it. I don't want to interrupt your flow.
Okay,
and
all right. Okay.
to derive the people.
So this is the so a set of new messages have been added. One is the cap q message, which is the query message. I'm calling it. It basically is very similar to DAO message. It has a capability query sequence number, and then there are a set of options. There is one new control option that has been added, which is capability type list. So basically, what a node who is querying the remote node, what it can do is it can specifically say that I am querying you for capability type 1, type 2, or type 3. So now one twist here is, if this capability type list option is not sent as part of this query, then the responder will essentially send back this list saying that I support capability type 1, capability type 2, and capability type 3. So this is one of the things that one has to keep in mind during. So if this control option is not present in the capability queue, it means that the sender is querying the list of capabilities. If the capability query already contains this type list with the corresponding capability types, then it essentially means it is querying for those specific capabilities. Next slide, please. So the capability or the capability response is sent in response to the capability query. The capability query sequence number is simply copied from the capq message. The options here can be two things. One is the capability type list that was mentioned before. The second is the specific capabilities which are being queried by the by the querier. So the responder will send, I support capability type 1, type 2, and with the complete information of those capabilities, and optionally send a capability type list. Now there is a specific reason why the capability type list might be sent to the sent by the capability responder to the capability query. Uh, basically what I'm trying to say is this options will contain two types of control options. One is the capability type list, which was discussed at the previous slide, and the other is set of capabilities, actual capabilities with its information. Next slide, please. So now I'll give you some examples. The three examples that needs to be explained. One is the querying supported capability list. Like I mentioned, the root or any other node can send the capq query sequence number and the options. If the options is nil, it means that the remote node has to send back just the list of the capability type. Next slide, please. So here, what happens is this is based on the list, the root or the area or any other node might in turn send a capability type list querying capability 1 and capability 2, and then the capability 1 and capability 2 options are sent back to the to the root in this case. This is the normal case, and then the last example. Next slide, please. So this is where things get interesting. So basically, what the root is saying is, I want to see capability 1, capability 2, and 3 and 4. This node supports only 2 and 3. It doesn't support 1 and 4. So I'm in this. If the capability type list is present, it means that the cap 1 and cap 4 is not supported by this node. So it has sent only capability 2 and capability 3. So if this is the way in which a root can know whether all the capabilities that it is requesting from the 6LR or 6LN are responded back with or not. So in this way, I can, for this example, at least I can avoid sending that one of three, one of three, or 2 of 3, or 3 of 3 side kind of bits. So these are all the example call flows that I have. Next slide, please. Is there a next slide? Okay, no. So that's pretty much it.
Okay, thank you very much, Raul. Do you have questions?
Thank you.
Okay, please review.
With Raul, that the way it's presented, if someone asks for 1 and 3 and just gets 1, it can time out and retry with just asking for 3. So I see that we can make it work. Now we need to probably explain that basically you need to retry and provide the timeout.
Yeah. That has to be explained. Yeah.
The other thing that we asked Raul that I've not seen, but maybe implicitly it's there. We said two things. We said it could be the parent polling all the children. So it's a multicast, but just one hop. It could be the child asking the parent, in which case it's a unicast. And then the last thing, it could be the root polling everybody in the network. In which case we have to propagate it down. And so can we, how do we know which case we're in out of those 3 cases?
So the first 2 cases are I think are handled by the current draft, but the last case that you mentioned, I'm not very clear. So you're saying that the root essentially does a DIO style trickle to all the nodes and sort of queries back the capabilities from all the nodes. Okay.
Right. And if we want to look at this flow, it's like, you know, there is this capability and the root wants to make sure that everybody has it, or something like that. Now you realize that if the root would really poll everybody, like I just described, that could be a humongous amount of information.
Yeah.
Now it might be that, and the signaling that you've shown does not really say that, but it might be that the root says, tell me if you don't support 5, option 5. And so if capability 5 or whatever. So the idea would be to flood the graph with this, and if somebody does not support capability 5, then and we expect it to be the exception, then he would answer. You see what I mean?
Interesting.
Now,
Yeah.
the problem with that, obviously, is the root can find that's not support option 5, but it may never be sure that everybody supports option 5, because if somebody missed a message, it's a false negative. So, but at least the mechanism seems useful for the kind of reasons we introduced all this discussion, which is, do we have somebody who does not support, I don't know, the RFC 8138 or something? So, I mean, I don't know how much it would be used, but if you could specify those features as well, and we can go back to the list or what, if you want to discuss exactly the details of what I just said, because that was really quick, but I'm sure you understood.
Yeah, I understood. So I'm just thinking whether to do it with. I mean, when root wants to query such kind of information, is it should it do it with capabilities or this control options as part of DAO or part of capability query? Because if we use DAO, then we implicitly get all the other things like ACK mechanism and all those things, and with root ACK, the node will even be able to find out whether the root has actually got the message or the capability set. So that is the thing that I'm thinking right now,
If we
rather
want,
than for the trickle style specifically. Sorry.
well, I'm sorry, there is the trickle style and there is the diffusion style, right? The trickle style is retry over and over. And so you for a long time with exponential backoff, so you hope that everybody will get it, but you never have an actual acknowledgement. So that's the ripple DIO style. Now for this message, you mentioned trigger earlier, but initially when we discussed it, one of the reasons why we wanted to have a different message compared to DIO is that we wanted to use the diffusion style, whereby a node would answer to his parent only when all the children have answered, or he has retried and failed. But basically, the whole idea was, I want to make sure that all the children I'm aware of, so in storing mode, I mean, you know your children, otherwise you may know the layer 2 peers, but I mean, it was just a discussion on the table, right? But what we said at that time is, for this message, we could use the diffusion style. The diffusion style, like I said, is when you only acknowledge to your parent when all your children acknowledged. So the question is flooded, and then when all your children acknowledges, you respond to your parent, and when all your peers have acknowledged to your parent, then your parent answers to your grandparent, etc. When the root gets all his children or all his first operators acknowledging, that means that he is get the full set of information. That's the way EIGRP works with the dual algorithm, but that's in general the diffusion algorithm. And so the reason we did not do it in repo originally is we never sure that everybody is there listening, getting the message, etc. So we based the routing on the fact that messages are lost, and it's because we retry them over and over that eventually they get there. For the capability, if we want something more reliable, obviously it means a lot more costly because the parent will have to retry to individual children. And so that was one of the motivation for separating it. I'm not saying we should do diffusion, right? But the idea was to consider it.
Yeah, Pascal, I think I need to think more about this, but basically root querying individual nodes is what is possible already currently. But if trickle style has to be introduced, it has implications on the flash also. So a trickle timer.
Talking the root unicasting to somebody down the DF was more like the root broadcasting the question, and the parents making it so that it's a reliable multicast over one hop. One way I mean, we have to describe how that would work, but the idea is recursively, it's a reliable multicast at every hop as we go down the tree, like without parent tree or something. It's not 100% clear, even in my mind, right? I mean, I can see how diffusion works. How it can work in an LLM is a lot less clear. But I was not saying go unicast. I understand we can do that. My prime was to do a reliable multicast. I'm not saying we should do it if we realize we cannot or it's too costly, etc. But the case
Okay, at least, yeah,
the
let's
root wanted to know if somebody in the network does not support this option. That's part of the questions that the root would have.
Okay, so the primary aim of this, the primary use case is that if somehow root wants to ask in the network, is there anyone who doesn't support this capability? Let me know. That is the point, right? So okay, that use case is
It may also, I mean, that's the more sensible, but the network is not too big. You may also ask, I want to know the amount of memory that every node in the network has for installing routes. So that would be the amount of messages, but if the network is 40 nodes, then that's doable, I expect.
Yeah, but in this case, if this kind of information is sought by the root, then isn't it better to actually unicast and get this information? Because otherwise, okay, you're saying if we can try to check if there is any improved way of doing it through reliable multicast. If there is, then we might think we should think about that. Okay.
The question, the cost will be the same going back up, right? So the host will still send that information back to root. But the cost of asking would be a lot
less, yeah.
Okay. So you have
Yeah.
questions, right? Let's chat, discuss, but
sure. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Primary reason
Pascal,
why
are you assuming that the root already has a list of all the nodes, so it knows if it got a complete answer when it got a complete answer?
Well, the root has.
I'm saying, are you assuming that all the DAOs have been received, etc. is what I mean.
So you start doing that?
Yeah.
I was not assuming anything. I mean, you're further than I was. I was expecting basically the recursive operation to be done by parents down to children. So it might be that the parent is aware of the child and the root is not yet aware, in which case we would receive more information that we expect. But I see that as okay.
Okay. I just most I was thinking that how the root would know when he's done.
Okay. So that is the false positive the false negative I was talking about. If you say I want everybody to answer, yes, as you said, you could compare the list of answers with the list of nodes you're aware of, and maybe go unicast to the others.
Right. Okay. We discussed that a while ago, and I think that I agree is a good idea.
Now, the other case is when you say, if anybody does not support this feature, tell me. In that case, the positive will be positive, but that might be false negative. Like you don't get an answer, but there's this guy who does not support the function and did not hear the broadcast, right? So there's still this. So it really depends on how much we're willing to pay for having a reliable multicast versus traditional trickle, say. The problem with trickle as well is you don't have a real idea of how long it's going to take. Because you exponentially back off, and after the fifth or seventh back off, then maybe the guy gets the question and finally answers. But that's way after, as you said, the root will time out and think he's got all the responses at some point. With trickle, you can't really do that. If you have a reliable multicast and you place bounds in the time to ask the question recursively and get the answer, then you can also bound the total time to get the answers. So it's all these things on the table. Right? We can't over-design this thing, but now what are the use cases, and is trickle good enough? Probably not. So, well, I don't want to disrupt the meeting for this, but it's kind of core to this draft, I guess.
Okay, thank you, Pascal. I think there is something to think about, a lot of things to think about. So that's pretty much it from my side.
Okay, thank you very much, Raul and Pascal. Okay, for user of Triple Info was pulled in July version 31. We have been updated to be aligned with unawarely. Now we have version 40. We have in GitHub the change log from 31 to 40. Basically, we update 6550. We advertise external roads with no stream mode signaling. We have eliminated hop by hop, all the traffic incoming from an external target. The XCs and the XCSLR always encapsulate to the root. So therefore, we have deleted the hop by hop, and we have fixed some needs as well. So please comment. The shaper write-up was updated as well. We think that it's ready to return back to the ISG. But anyway, comments are always welcome.
And I want to thank Dominique for the extensive review that you
exactly.
were just enough to do. That really helped because the authors have read this document and looked at it so many times that at the end we could not see anything anymore. And so, Dominique, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dominique, very much, and everyone that have reviewed this document as well. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So there have been a lot of changes. I was just looking at the change log, and it is almost 300 lines long. There has been a lot of...
We just mentioned the sorry, I'm interrupting. We just mentioned the executive summary, so we have something for you that you haven't seen yet.
Okay, no, that's good. So what I'm wondering, and I don't know exactly what I think we need to do with this document, because it has already gone through IETF last call and ISG review and all those things. If we need to do that again, because there have been a lot of changes, right? You've had the document back for about a year. So I also don't know how much benefit we are going to get from IETF review and another IAG evaluation. Because, honestly, you guys here in the working group are the guys who know, right, what the content looks like and all those things. And if anyone's going to catch something else, it's probably going to be you guys, and you already went through another year of review of this document. So
can I suggest something, Alvaro? So first of all, the summary comes to you. That may help you decide what to do. I believe we have the unaware leaves has it left? Have you done your write up for it? I don't know actually.
No, I haven't. It's in the queue.
Okay. So since most of the changes that we made to this are to synchronize it with unaware leaves, what my suggestion is, take our overview comments and pass that with unaware leaves through the process. The documents are not going to advance on their own anyway. They refer to each other.
Yep.
So whatever review unaware leaves get, you could do that. Or is one thought. And the other half of that thought is, well, you could pass that summary to the people that did the reviews before.
Right. And yeah, I've done things like that before. Usually it's, one revision later or something.
Right.
Not 8. But still, yes. I'd rather not have to run everything again. Because it's this complicated document and there's a bunch of cases and, et cetera. So yes, I rather, and that's a really good suggestion. I'd rather just go and say, these are the changes. Does anyone have any real concerns? If anyone does, then, we probably have to at least do another IAG evaluation or something, or something like that. But as you said, this shouldn't delay the whole thing because they should progress together anyways.
Yes, I completely agree with the words that you pronounced earlier. The bottom line is we changed 2 things in all those versions. The summary of the summary is we added the support for unaware leave, just like Michael just said. And that's basically 1 page of text, which is kind of standalone about what we call external destinations. So this is the piece that you could focus on if you want to get some help outside of the working group. Just review that we didn't do something silly on that particular page. The rest is fixing those N use cases, these N cases that went through the group, then went through the ISG. And there were bugs that nobody at the first round of the group, nobody through the ISG found. And as we did those reviews and reviews and reviews again, then here and there was kind of a typo mode, if you like, because there was one spirit and sometimes there was one mistake. And like I said, going second time through the ASG, do we expect they will extract more of those typos? I would say no. That would waste a lot of their time because, like I said, it's an awful document, so many cases, but at the same time, it was fixing bugs, right? So we looked at what we did when we do these changes, we fixed the bugs, and when you do a bug fix, you try not to introduce a new bug or something. I mean, like exponentially less bugs in there. Also exponentially less chances that anybody at the ISG who's not really aware of those flows would catch anything. So high-level thing where the thought process should be concentrated is this page which discusses with external destinations and which really was introduced for the support of Ripple and awareness.
Okay. So do you guys think that, I was just looking at, and I think you're right. I mean, I don't think anyone else is going to go find anything else. I was just looking at the, who had done reviews and, things like that. I noticed that the IoT directorate didn't do a review for this. It might be good if we ask for one now, by the time I get to Unaware Leaves, they'll be done with the review just in case they have something. That way I can, when I go to the ASG, I can say, here's the summary. We got another review from the IoT directorate and we should just keep going. So if you think 40, or I'll wait for the, guys to send me the summary and I'll get a review from the IoT directorate just in case, which might even fall on one of you guys here in the working group. And we'll just go from there.
Right. Okay, great. Thank you.
You guys.
Thank you very much. Okay. Additional comments? Thank you. Dominique, next slide, please. Thank you. So we have as well the rest of the active internet draft. We have the projection that has a new version. We have to check if this new version close all the open tickets that they have. I see the open tickets are still open in the GitHub. This was that. Then this modification is going to be discussed today by Churchills, and PDAO is in the queue. Enrollment priority, we have asked for review, and we are going to get one review of the volunteer at the end of July. After that, we can move forward. And the extension, we have assigned a shepherd. So after the shepherd the review, we are going to submit to the ISG. Report observation is in progress, and then there's unaware leave, and the turn off T138 are submitted to the ISG. Next slide. And the related intro draft. Lighting the information is going to be presented for Pascal today, and this modification use case is related with this modification. I think was an idea to merge with this modification. This one. Then the story input act was present in the previous meetings. I think it's still work in progress. Do you have some comments on it, Raul?
Yeah, so I will update the draft based on some of the modifications in Unaware Leaves draft, and then I think we'll have another discussion.
Okay, thank you very much, Raul.
Thank you.
Next slide, please. Okay, this is our open ticket. Yes, this is the system, so you can see the ODB Ripple tickets are created here based on the last comment from Alvaro. Then we have 2 tickets from our producer, but those are in the GitHub as well. Next slide, please. So we have some issues in the capability draft, some issues to attend Ripple observations. Slide, please. And in DAO projection. Yeah. So I think this needs are being fixed in version 0.2 for enrollment priority. So I think we can close that issue. And then for DAO projection, we have those issues that we have to check if the version 10 address those issues. The next slide, please. Okay, Georgios, thank you for sending the slides. And now the slides are into the system. I uploaded successfully. So, please, if you can share them.
Thank you, Ines. Do you hear me, guys?
Yes, I can. We can hear you.
We can hear you. So do you want me to advance the slide, or do you want to share them from your own desk?
Feel free to advance the slides, please.
Okay.
These are mine, actually.
Oops, sorry. Oh yeah, so it's not, it's not in the accumulated slide. Okay, let me get the other one. Just 1 second, coming up. Okay. Sharing, can you see the slide?
Yeah, we can see it.
Yes, I think it's...
Make it bigger. Is that good? Size-wise?
it's fine. It's fine, I think. Yeah, it's good. Do you have the floor? So here I have Dominic. Do you hear me?
Yeah, slide 2.
Can you go to slide 1, please?
Or do you want to go back? Okay.
One slide, just one slide. Yes. So here I will try to cover two drafts that are related to each other. So the one is the recent one that I worked on the use cases, and I'd like to have your feedback about the future of this draft, whether I should continue working on it or whether there is interest or not from the working group. And the second one is about the solution, one of the solutions that we may have with the DIS modification draft. I will give you a brief overview over both of these drafts, and then I would like to initiate a discussion at the end of this presentation with the working group. Next slide, please. So I'm not sure if I need to go again through the details, because I gave it in the end of April the presentation of the use cases. So I will try to be brief here. So basically, we have so far 4 use cases. So the first 2 are the node joining to DODAC. Typical example here is a smart meter that's being replaced in the field while a Ripple network is operating in a stable mode. So this node will send the either will wait for a long time for the DIO control packet to be received, or it will initiate by himself the DIS in order to trigger the DIO control packets. And as a result, we will have a bunch of DIOs from all its neighbors, and the trickle timer will be resetted, and this will increase the traffic load in the network, and as a consequences, we'll have the energy consumption in the network. The next use case that it comes from, the first two that comes from the modification draft. It's about identifying the defunct DODAC. So basically, the sorry. So basically, the idea here is that a Ripple node may remove a neighbor from its parent set for a DODAC for a number of reasons. For example, the neighbor is no longer reachable, or the neighbor advertises an infinite rank in the DODAC. But the problem is that a Ripple node may fail to remove a neighbor. For instance, the node may fail to receive the neighbor's DIO advertising and increase rank or neighbor's membership in a different DODAC. So thus, a node will continue to consider itself attached to a DODAC, even if its parents in the DODAC are unreachable or have moved to different DODAC. So this is the use case. And such DODAC which is characterized defunct from the node perspective. Now the problem here is that if the node will continue maintaining the state about a large number of the defunct DODACs, it may consume considerable part of the total memory in the node. So the potential idea here will be like, we will send DIS message, and inside this DIS message, it will include the flag, non-inconsistency flag, in order to prevent the trickle timer to be resetted. And it will include some solid-state information options to identify the DODAC questions. For instance, the flags I and D for the Ripple instance and the DODAC ID in order to find the appropriate DODAC. Then we have the use case that comes from the Ripple observation from the Raul's draft, which, by the way, I saw that Raul that solved this issue from the draft, from the observation draft. So it will be addressed here now. So the idea here is that to reduce the control traffic overhead, Ripple uses the trickle timer to update configuration parameters. However, in the absence of regular traffic, the adjacencies cannot be tested and repaired if broken. So we do have the Ripple unicast DIS to query a node for its DIO, where a node receiving this unicast DIS must respond with unicast DIO with configuration option. And now the question here comes if this mechanism could be as well made use for probing the adjacencies. And then finally, we have the fourth use case, which I need to update the draft with the 0.1 version. So this use case comes from Pascal, from our latest interim meeting. So where the idea is, okay, we have a sudden power shutdown in the network. And what will happen is that when the nodes will reboot, all of the devices would like to discover the network. They will start sending all of them directly DIS packets here and there, and will be a little bit chaotic. So we may have some, we may need some solutions in order to mitigate the problem with multiple DIS packets and the collisions that we may have, and additional retransmissions and so on. So these are the so far 4 use cases. So the question to the working group is, if you have more use cases in your mind, please let us know. Dominic, can you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So here comes the DIS modification draft, and it comes with several enhancements, let's say. And here I give a brief overview. So we have somehow a solution to reduce the number of DIO responses on DIS request by adding some flags. For instance, the N and T flag, where N stands for no inconsistency and T stands for type. So with N, basically, the node will inform the receivers, do not reset your trickle timer. And with N, it will identify to the receivers whether the DIOs that they will send in response will be in broadcast or in unicast. Then if we want to reduce even more the number of responses, DIO responses, there is a what's called selectivity of multicast DIS messages. Basically, what the draft proposed is to have a meta container inside the DIS where the node will somehow filter the nodes that will respond to this DIS based on different routing constraints. Then we have the third point here, it's called the information carried by the DIOs. Basically, this is related to the second use case that I talked before about the identifying the defunct DODAC. Basically, inside the DIS, we could have some information, solicited information about the root or the prefix information or about the DODAC and so on, if we want to find the problematic DODAC. And finally, the fourth point here is the response spreading, where we somehow try to randomize the response of the DIOs when we are sending a DIS request. So basically, what the problem here is that when a node sends a DIS request to its neighbors, if two or more nodes will reply with DIO control packets, we may have collisions. So by having this response spreading, we will randomize the response time. And like this, we will avoid to have collisions, which in turn makes it to have retransmissions if we have collisions in the DIO responses. Okay, so these are the a summary of the DIS modification draft. Next slide, please. I have two examples. So here is the example of whether to reset or not. So on the left side, we have the default use case where F node sends the DIS in broadcast. All neighborhood nodes will reset their trickle timers and will start sending DIO packets in short intervals, so which will increase the traffic. On the right side, we have, again, F sends the DIS, including the flags. And the flags, for instance, if it is N, the nodes will reply with DIO, but will not reset. So it will just will be one shot of DIO response. And it can be unicast if we have the T flag included in this DIS. Next slide, please. Now, if we want to even more optimize the number of nodes that will respond on this DIS control packet, we may include, as I said earlier, the meta container option, where if some of the devices will fulfill the specified routing constraints, less nodes will reply. So for instance, in this case, only node A and R will respond to F. So we are reducing by half the number of DIO packets in the network. So the traffic, which translates into energy. Next slide, please. So in this slide, we have a theoretical count of DIO packets in response on DIS control packet as a function of the number of neighbors receiving. So basically, in the x-axis, we have total number of neighbors. And on the y-axis is the total number of DIO responses. So as you can see, with the default version of Ripple, which is the gray color, the more we have neighbors, the traffic, the control packets we may get can go above 1,000 control packets per DIS request. And then if we include, for instance, the N flag, which basically says do not reset your trickle timer, we already reducing essentially the number of DIO responses. And then if we include on top of that the NC metric container option, which will force to filter out some of the neighbors. And depending this filtering, you can see that we are having varying number of responses, which is always below or equal to N flag. Next slide, please. So here I have a series of slides where I'm showing some detailed depiction of behavior with different flags configuration and with some metric container options or response spreading options. So basically, we did a small setup, small network of 10 nodes, where we had node 6 that was joining into this network. So we did this on Contiki NG, and we were running Ripple on top and 60 minimal at the layer 2. Next slide, please. So this is what happens when we do not have any flag, any option. So basically, we have the default of 6550. Node 6 will join around time equal 30. So basically, the red line means that the radio is off, and then green line indicates that radio is on, and node 6 will send the DIS. Hello guys, I want to join. Please, somebody send me a DIO in order to get this necessary information so that I will join this Ripple network. And as you can see, all the neighbors, they are resetting their trickle timer, and we are having multiple of DIO packets in response from all these neighbors. Next slide, please. So when we're including N flag, so basically what we have is only one node. The trickle timer is not resetted, so each device will send only once the DIO in response. So we already reduced this repetition of DIOs. Next slide, please. So if we include the N flag plus the response spreading in the bottom subplot, you will see that the good thing here is that we don't have any more collisions, or there is very low chance to have collisions because the nodes now will respond with a variable timer and around 2 milliseconds. So what happens is that we avoid the collisions, and by avoiding collisions, we avoid the retransmissions. So this is the response spreading functionality here. Next slide, please. So we have N flag, response spreading, and the metric container, where the third item here basically filters out the nodes that will fulfill the constraint that is specified inside the DIS. And as you can see here, when node 6 sends the DIS, only 3 or 4 nodes respond with DIO, which is sent only once. And they are sent in different times because of the response spreading. Next slide, please. So here we have the two flags, the no inconsistency and the type flag. So basically, we add one more line in the legend. So we have the unicast DIO TX. So basically what you see is that at around time 30 again, the node 6 sends the DIS, but because it sends the n empty flags together, it will receive only unicast DIO in response. And these are the green cross packets that you see in this timeline. Next slide, please. So the interesting part here is, again, if you combine n plus t plus metric container with filtering out some of the nodes, we will receive only 4 nodes that will respond to the DIS request. Next slide, please. And so here we have the ultimate. We have no inconsistency, unicast in the response, metric container to filter out, and response spreading so that the nodes will not send at the same time, so to avoid the collisions in response. And in the bottom figure, you can see that the 4 devices that they are transmitting, they are having some time differentiation. So we are avoiding the collision in the response, as well as we're reducing the number of responses in terms of the IO. Next slide, please. So this is a summary of different flags and different combinations between flags and options. So basically, what you can see here, we are reducing up to more than 40% the number of DIO responses when we are including some flags and options inside the DIS request when we compare to the default RPL, which is the gray ripple, the gray line in the bottom. Next slide, please. So this is the slide where I would like to initiate the discussion. So from my side, my next to do is to include the use case that was given by Pascal, so that I will have the 0-1 with all 4 use cases. Question to the working group will be, do you have more use cases in mind? And the second question will be, is there any interest on this draft? Like, should I continue dedicating some energy on this, on this draft? And then the next question will be about the future of this draft, of the use cases and the DIS notification, whether you want or you think should be 2 different drafts, or whether the use cases should be in the appendix of the solution draft. And then the last question will be about the solution draft. I'm having background noise.
From my side? Yeah, anyways, I have a question, so I unmuted. Are you still getting a background noise? Is it okay?
Now it's better.
Okay.
My last word, and then I'm open for the debate.
Sure.
Discussion. So the last part will be whether it will be okay to continue with DIS modification draft, or you want to have one single solution with, because I know that the lighting DIO information has some options for the DIS as well. So whether you want to have one single draft or to separate in this subject. That's all from my side, and I will be happy to have nice discussion.
Great, thank you.
Okay, since I was mentioned, can I have some questions here?
Yes, please.
So Georgios,
have a debate.
Debates question, right?
I mean, we are only people, so it's hard not to be mentioned here, Pascal.
Yes, the first thing is when we include these metrics, it's basically a filter. We will have less answers, but we might be missing the right answer, right? So the drawings seem to indicate like, oh, by magic, the best parent and the guy on the left would answer. Since we don't, I mean, unless the metric is a rank and we say, but answer if your rank is better than this, but since we don't know where to start, I mean, it's very hard to do something like that.
Actually, that's one of the ideas, by the way, to have a filter on the rank.
Yeah, but you need to know where to start. So you need to have heard something. So it's chicken and egg otherwise.
Yep.
It doesn't matter that much. You're saving so much that you're better off being too selective, receiving nothing, and then lowering the threshold.
Well,
so
anyways,
I'm fine just having 2 or 3 DIS being sent before you get the answers, as opposed to creating an avalanche of responses.
Say, for instance, the metric is, I'm not here, but we need to not to expect magic from this thing, right? So it's just I'm saying, for instance, if the metric is the signal must be better than this, you might get only the responses for guys who are even farther than you are from the root, just because they are the one closest to you. So we have to be careful. Just saying there's, yes, we have less answer, but we might be missing the right answer. Or the filter is wrong, then we might not have any answer at all. For instance, based on rank, if you don't have any idea what the right rank is to start with, then if you ask for a rank which is too low and too far, then everybody will answer, the filter will be useless. If you ask for something too high, too near the root, then there will be nobody because you're far from there. So it's very hard to know where to start with. So it's a chicken and egg. So I was that's just, you know, food for thought. I'm not saying I have an answer for that. I'm just saying, hey, it's not easy. So that's point one. Point two was about the use case 4, which is where the node sends the node reboots, but say it's a blackout, and we are talking about your electrical meter, and so now after the blackout, the power comes back and all the meters boot, and guess what? At pretty much the same time, they would send this message. Obviously, it's not something you want for the reasons George has explained, like they will collision with one another, making a cacophony where nobody understands anything. And even worse, that will actually use the spectrum that could be used for DIO to reform the network.
I mean, frankly, I would agree definitely with you. This is the hardest use case, right? I mean, we have nothing in the network and everybody started at the same time. I do not say that I have a solution in mind for this, right? But it's a place to start. Well,
the blackout is a use case we have in the AMI networks, right? I mean, it's a real thing.
Yeah, all of them are real, right?
So my bottom line is, and it's true for the answers as well, when you have this delayed response, trickle is exactly meant for this. Right? It's a matter of defining what we call redundancy, what we call the same thing. For instance, if I reboot and I want to send a disk,
yes.
If I trickle that, and I consider that any disk that I would receive, which would have the same flags as mine, would be the same as mine, then I would basically cancel out my own transmission because I got a disk from somebody else. So using is basically explaining, saying what a DS is, which is the same as yours, and allowing trickle to cancel your own sending, that could probably help a lot. In the same fashion, if some answers, some DIOs are the result of this answer. And for instance, we have a bit in the DIO which says, I'm an answer to a DS. Then somebody would also answer a DS. But you know, everything is trickled in Ripple. So the DIOs themselves are trickled. Even if you put your trickle value back to the minimum, still it's trickled. Meaning that if anyone answers for the same question, you should not have to answer. But we need to explain that this is actually a duplication and that it makes it unnecessary for you to answer. What I'm saying is basically trickle does very naturally this delayed answer, at least some of it. And I'm not saying we don't need the flags, no, right? I'm saying, hey, we need to look at exactly what trickle does, how we can use it, and is it enough or not?
So can I just state a few points as a response to Pascal? The reason why we have the delay spread option is precisely in the case where we request a unicast answer, because if it's the multicast answer, it will be trickled, so we don't need to have this spreading added on top of trickle. But if you request a unicast, then it will be sent immediately, quote unquote, and that's why we have the spreading option.
Yes, it has to be
for that case.
Yes, yeah, agreed. We discussed that actually, and the bottom line was, if I remember well, that because it's unicast, we cannot expect that the other guys see the response and consider it's a duplication from their own response or something.
Right.
And so the idea was, if we have a layer violation of some form, we could actually help.
Right. And the other stuff is, when you say trickle will do the job and you will eventually get to the area, the point is that if you have a quiet network that has a very long maximum period for trickle, then it sets the the expectation for the time you have to wait before you join the network, and so there are some cases where the technician is not going to wait for that expectation of time. So that's why we want to send the DIS as opposed to just waiting to get the DIO through trickle.
Yes, but then we have two choices, right? We said when we early discussed that, we said there could be a button on the meter or something, and you press it, that would force the DS or something. So that was one option we had. The question I have was, could we trick what we have so we don't even need that button, right? A button is additional complexity for the guy who installs the meter, for the guys who make the meters. They have to install this button, have the logic when you press the button, etc. I was wondering.
Right, they need a button anyway because they need to associate that meter with person X on that street in that city. So this is going to happen anyway.
Okay, so maybe in the case of the meter, I was just trying to think, if Trickle could not only decide that you don't have to send the message, but also that you should not even reset the bit, the email or something. So, you receive this as we receive it today. So today, this multicast one. So today we would reset to email, and everybody would do that. But now there is somebody who will fire the DIO first. And because of, say, there are this K number of DIOs which are fired during this short window of time. The others also did reset their trickle timer to email, so they will do email time 2 or something. But I was like, oh, could we say, oh, go back to where you were, don't stay with the small email, you had your chance. So just, the bottom line would be to play the trickle with the short duration just once, and then resume the normal duration.
Yeah, which is pretty much the same functionality as saying send the response once with delay spreading and don't change your trickle timer. It's exactly what you said. Give it a chance and then go back to where you were with the trickle timer.
Yeah, but
the period.
To give it a chance, you still need to cancel if enough response were perceived, right? So just play emin once and restore, or it's not exactly the same wording as saying response one.
And anyway, not all networks do transmission cancellation. They play the period, but not necessarily the cancellation. So you don't know that it's going to happen anyway.
I'm not following you on this. What do you mean?
Sorry, was that a question?
Yeah, I was not following you on this one. You say not all.
I'm saying trickle has two components, two elements to it. One is playing the period at which you try sending the DIO, and the other thing is cancelling out the transmission if you've heard enough consistent information in the first half of the period. But the second constant is at the K value, I think. The K could be set to 0, if I remember correctly, which means I will transmit anyway. And so you don't know that a given network does have transmission cancellation.
Well, if one mechanism we introduce assumes it, then we'll say you can just use it if you have a K of K that's set, right? So I understand that what you're saying. I'm not clear that anybody says K to 0, but say they do.
Well, what's the default value in quantity? Georgios, you know?
Right. Without K, you basically are back to the exponential backoff, slightly randomized. So
in my understanding was that what most implementation would do by default.
So let me just state in the context in which I had the same issue. and my configuration, and I think this is the configuration of Quantique as well. So the IMIN was set to 12, which means send the initial DI after 4 seconds. I mean 4 seconds, roughly 4 seconds, between 2 and 4 seconds, and then the disk is configured to be sent randomly between 0 to 4 seconds. Now, if my node density is sufficiently high, I have a root, and then there are like at least 10 or 12 neighbors to the root, and these neighbors start sending this all the time, and my IMIN is 4 seconds, then there is a good chance that the root might keep resetting the DIO timer, trickle timer, and won't send the DIO ever. So I'm assuming the proposition here will solve that issue. Is that assumption correct? I mean, I know for sure that we had a discussion before, and it targeted this scenario. So my IMIN is 12. By default, the IMIN as per RFC 6550 is 256 millisecond. With 256 millisecond, it's very difficult to get this problem. But if I increase the IMIN to 4 seconds and keep the default disk timer to 0 to 4 seconds, in which case I have this problem. With sufficiently higher, with higher node density, I want to keep an IMIN which is slightly bigger inside. So that's when I face this problem.
I think question how so the IMIN is larger than the disk, and so you time out the disk and you retry it before you get any DIO. That's the problem.
Yeah. So the problem is before the DIO trickle timer can start, someone will keep sending this, and there is no way the root will know not to reset its DIO trickle timer. So at least for the first time, till the first DIO is sent, the root should not be resetting its trickle timer. If there is some way of saying that, that would be great.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah,
that would solve the problem, James.
Oh yes, I remember the discussion now. I'm sorry. It looked like a bug to me, right?
Yeah, we had talked about this on the mailing list. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I remember I was even on the mic on that point. That was long ago, but yes, I remember you mentioning it. I was like, once there is a difference between resetting the value of I to IMIN, and so if your timer is bigger than that, then you have to restart your timer to IMIN. Or once you're already there, if you receive a new disk, rearming the timer, which you should not be doing. For me, that was a bug. And because the timer, once it's the value of IMIN has been set, the value of trickle timer set to IMIN, whatever you receive, this one should keep on going until it times out. Because otherwise it will be longer, it will be pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed each time you get a message and you never get to answer. Like that's what you described. And I thought it was more of a bug fix than anything else, right?
Okay, so if essentially what we say is that we won't be restarting if the timer is already at IMIN, then even if we receive if we receive a disk, there won't be any handling done for that disk.
Right. Exactly.
Or there won't be any timer handling to be done for that particular disk. Maybe some other handling can be done. If that is the way, then I think then doesn't it solve all the other issues as well? Is there any? So then the sudden power shutdown issue, is it still there? Is what my question is.
Yeah, because the problem is everybody sends a disk at the same time, and nobody considers that the disk sent by the neighbors is a duplicate of the disk that they would like to send. So if everybody wants to send a multicast disk, I mean, they should be sensitive to the fact that all those other meters are rebooting next to them, also trickling sending disks. So if 4 meters around me send a disk multicast, I would expect that will be the IOs, and I don't need to send a disk multicast.
But that is
this use case came at last, right? I mean, the solution that I presented did not consider your use case, right? So please do not relate that the solution that I presented solves your use case as well, right?
I agree. That's why I was adding this discussion. I mean,
Exactly.
see how
So
far
we
it takes
yes.
us. And exactly, I mean, whatever we can describe, even if it means the same thing, like Dominic said, if we can describe it in the way we handle trickle, then we are still very close to the normal behavior of the protocol. So it looks like natural to do it. So my case was, it seems natural to cancel all those disks, asking for multicast. It looks natural to consider that your neighbor is doing the same thing, is duplicated, so you cancel your own. And I'm back to, okay, should I then do I equal ×2, or do I go back to I max or something? Right? Which is, even for the DS, if I want to send a DS and I see people around me sending DS, isn't it enough that they did? And so they did. Should I really send one after I2? I mean, useless probably. We need to think a little bit more about that at Flower, I guess.
Yeah, I think Pascal, Georgios, myself, maybe whoever is interested, we should have a little design session on that. Well, there are so few people on this interim meeting. It's nearly the design session in itself. But
yeah.
So one more question in the context, and I'm just curious to know what is the metric container that was used for filtering in this in the experiments, the data presented in the slides. Sorry, what?
In the simulation, my idea was
the
to
simulation.
use the rank, as Pascal suggested,
rank.
But in the simulation, Georges, can you confirm
for the simulation? It was a rank, yes.
It was a rank, okay. So basically, you send a constraint saying that only the nodes having rank less than or equal to this rank send back a DI.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Okay.
But if you do that, the question is, what rank value do you give? Which
for these simulations, we put arbitrary value, but the question is valid. Yes, I do not know yet which value to put there.
So if you get at least one DIO, you could use that as reference and say everybody better than that. The rest I don't need to know. But if you did not get any DIO at all, then you have no idea of what range of rank is being used in this graph, unless you're just rebooting and maybe your emitter never change position or anything. Then that would be valid when you reboot to actually pick, if you could store the last value, pick that.
We can start with a short value, and then if we don't receive anything, we can increase with the next one, etc.
Yeah, but you end up sending even more disks than you save. So.
Yeah, what Pascal is saying is to maybe store the last known value if you're just rebooting.
Yes, of your own rank. So if you knew what your own rank was, you could start with that next time, but you need to have run one.
Perfect.
But even if you know nothing and do a log search, so probably cost less to the overall network than having this avalanche of DIOs in case of high density.
Well, if everybody
it only costs to you.
Well, it costs bandwidth, which is the shared medium, during which would be used to send DIO if you were not bothering people. So,
Right, but you never know when you get to DIO. It may be tomorrow.
Chicken and egg, right? But that's when trickle is very, very efficient, because if we could basically say, okay, let's send this DIO, for instance, the multicast DIO, but if there is anybody else sending the same DIO, then it's being cancelled because the two of them are useless. But anyway, I'm not saying
yes,
it's just that it's hard to tune. We have to find a way to use it.
Right. But it shouldn't be a reason for not introducing the mechanism.
Sorry?
I mean, even if it's hard to tune, it doesn't mean we don't want to introduce a feature in the protocol.
I was not saying that. I was saying, let's understand exactly
just
what
making
is
sure.
what and put all the best ideas on the table on how to use it, right? For instance, we already gave a use case like I reboot, I know my old rank. Let me try with that first. That's already a case where you have a starting value and using rank makes sense.
So the other question in the context was whether to keep these two drafts different or same. I mean, as far as I can see, most of the discussion in both the drafts are related to this, and so I'm wondering, is there any reason? I would basically, is there any reason to keep it different? I mean, I can clearly see that most of the discussion is very similar. So what I'm trying to say is,
you mean the use case and the solution, or the
use case and this modification. So basically, everything related to this goes into the same draft.
Right. So my opinion on that, and I want to ask George just to write this use case draft, was to draw attention from the working group to the use cases so that we discuss use cases first, and then we discuss solutions. And so because we had a hard time drawing attention, I thought a separate draft for the use case would draw attention. I think now we have the attention of all the people who care in the World Working Group.
Yes, that's true.
I think it serves the purpose.
There's another thing that it is the fact that, and we know that depending on the use case, the situation we're in, and sometimes we need maybe this button on the meter or something to know which situation we're in. But depending on the situation we're in, there is one mechanism we want to use and one that we certainly don't want to use. For instance, broadcasting this when there is this blackout coming out and everybody broadcasting this is a bad idea. So the use case is also interesting in that it not only says what the situation you want to solve, but also what kind of disk you want to send. And if we start specifying, if you're in this situation, you send this disk, then it's more than a use case draft. It's actually a specification. So that's when you want to merge, because not only do we say you have this bit, but we all start sending here as a use case for use this value for the bit.
Right. So, and I agree. Now that we got attention from people to the use cases, we think we have listed them all. Then my inclination would be to include the use cases as an appendix in the solution draft. Okay. Does that make sense to everybody?
Well, the third choice that is not written here is put it in the main draft. If it's not only describing the use case, but also mandating a setting of the bits in that case.
So you mean appendix is too much informational? You want, when you say in the main draft, you mean in the core of the draft?
If you end up saying in that situation, you must set the bit blah to this value and you must set the bit blah to this value, then it's not an appendix, right?
Yeah, but we're specifying a protocol. You can't specify what the technician in the field has to do when he has to press a button and buy a sandwich and drink a Coke.
I would not drink a Coke. So, I mean...
Oops, this meeting is being recorded. I need to pay attention.
The bottom line is either we make it so that whatever is done, it's not too bad. And that includes what I mentioned about, sending the disks and applying trickle to the disks of your neighbors so you don't send the same. So this would make, my situation less harmful, mostly harmless. But if we don't have solutions like that, and there are ways of using bits which can really harm, we also must specify not to set the bits in that situation. And that becomes standard track. And that's when I say, if we start having this discussion, then it's not an appendix. But we need to describe the situation where you must not set those bits, basically in that. So the use cases helped a lot sorting out the various situations and comparing them. obviously, when you send, say, must or must not, you also need to describe something more more generic than a technician with a blue coat and a bird pressing a red button, not a yellow. You know, that would be crazy. But we need to describe like the global situation, like 1 meter versus the whole network.
Right, but that could be, recommendations, common sense. I don't see it as a part of a protocol specification.
When to use it? Well, I have had that discussion recently about some security settings and stuff like that. There was more like you are now, and there was moved to different. And there was even shoots about how to deploy the thing. And then I would say, hey,
Okay.
no, we are specifying a protocol, not the deployment of that protocol. But yes, actually, we have. If there is a chance that somebody does something wrong, we need to write it, and even uppercase.
Okay.
To be honest, it's not 100% clear whether it's going to appendix or in the main of the solution draft. Because if it's going to the main of the solution draft, I'm not saying that I'm against. The thing is that the protocol proposes something, but if we are proposing during the use cases sections some recommendation, I mean, is it okay like this, or we want all the recommendation and the actions to be in one part of the draft, and the use cases to be just use cases in another sections?
And if the use case is there to illustrate a generic case, then it can be an appendix. But we still have to word the generic case in which the recommending setting of the bits is this.
Okay.
Right? If there is a chance that the network fully reboots, then you should be doing this, for instance. This could be a setting of trickle, could be whatever. And then you could say in the appendix, there is appendix A4, which actually gives you an example of such a case where the whole network reboot, and that example is my smart grid after a black hole.
Okay.
I mean, the must cannot apply to the specific case of a smart grid, right? The must applies to situation when there is a global reboot of the network. But people will say, oh, an IoT network never has a global reboot because people will, put the battery in one. And yes, but if you have a smart grid network, yes, you have a global reboot. It happens.
Okay, I will merge use cases if you want. Yes.
Yes, it's a good. I think it's.
Then the question is merged into which, because now we have the question at the bottom of the slide, which is where do we put the modifications to this? Right now, there are some modifications in the eliding DIO draft and some others in the disk modifications draft. So how do we do? Do we merge those two as a big one, which has eliding DIO and all the modifications to this, or do we keep them separate? Take the modifications to this of eliding DIO into a separate one, so it's better contained, and make sure they're synchronized, of course. Any opinion on that? I have one.
You will come later, right? It's less advanced than the disk modification. So pushing stuff, taking stuff off eliding and putting it to modification, if it's possible, that would work, and then leave eliding its own life just about the eliding mechanism.
Well, we would still need a reference because you have the RCSS stuff in the flags in the disk that we want to get in somehow. So they would be tied.
I don't see how RCSS is tied with this discussion, Dominic. I'm not sure if it is tied. Is it tied? I believe it's.
Well, right now, in eliding DIO, the proposal is to use a byte that was reserved in this to place the RCSS that you left further, so that it filters out the, well,
yeah, but the use case of RCSS is. But the use case of RCS is not different, right? But here what we're talking about for DIO, this is a single hop request response or single hop reduction of control overhead. With RCS, it's I mean, what I'm trying to figure out is it's still the disk modifications that we're talking about may not RCSS may not directly be related to that.
But it's still a modification to this, right?
It's
So
there is a
two
modification to
documents
this. Oh, you're saying that like that. Okay, yeah. The disk message is getting updated. That's right. But I mean, rational wise or use cases wise, maybe that has no relevance there. I think.
Right. I mean,
So we,
I guess I can. I need to reread the specs, but I guess we can move with doing the DIO eliding DIO modifications in the disk separately. Otherwise, we could very well bring most of the draft into this modification to the point that it's merged into it, and that would be too much, I guess.
Okay, we should start move forward because we are like only 15 minutes. Would be of course nice to merge those documents, but at the same time, if we have to work in the use cases now, we can just focus on the use cases, and then we can merge later. So we should take those topics to the mailing list and let the people know. And please, if you organize a meeting, just let us know so if we can contribute. In the
yeah, well, I'm late on that. I should have done that 2 weeks ago already.
Problem.
So.
Yeah,
Okay.
but yeah, thank you very much for this work. And yes, of course, I think that this modification of the use case have to be merged. And but since we have to focus on the use case now, we can move forward separately. But we need to move forward with the LIDIO information. Pascal, it's related. Thank you very much. Thank you. Pascal, please.
Okay, do you see the slides?
Yes, I
can see.
So there are 15 minutes and there are 15 slides, so we're good. No, actually, it's a joke. Most of the slides are repeating the ones from last time, and they are there for background, but I only have 3 slides, so we should be quite okay. I'm getting background noise, and I wonder where it's coming from. Like maybe it's
I think this is Raul, but you just muted, so this should be good. Is it good now?
No, I'm still getting it.
Okay, oh, sorry.
That's interesting. It might even be my PC, I don't know. It's just bothering. So anyway, so please, next slide. Okay, so I published in March, but the changes are very minor. Same problem as I was mentioning earlier. We've had a lot of work on a number of documents like those 4 and PDAO, rule, turn on, and user repo info. Now we're past. We discussed about doing REPL v2, and so the question to the group is to have this consistent and overall view of where we want to go with REPL v2. And if you remember, in my view, at least the main difference between REPL and REPL v2 is that REPL was designed for, I would say, one use case with a fixed configuration. You have it for all times, and it will never change. And the network lives exactly like that for its life. And now we're saying, hey, REPL is actually successful. There will be a brownfield. there will be upgrades, there will be changes in the configuration, and then we can't bring down the network and do a flag day every time something changes. It's not acceptable in the use cases where actually Ripple was deployed. So we need to think Ripple v2 in a way that will allow to improve the network operation, add features, add capabilities, while the network is deployed, active, and even very large, possibly. And we will not be able to afford having to bring down the whole network and restore it. So this is the reason why we've got the capabilities. And this is also the reason why we have this draft, because this draft is all about making sure that the configuration information, not just the configuration option, but all that we could call the configuration information that the node needs to have to operate Ripple correctly, all this configuration is up to date. Meaning, okay, I might have read the configuration earlier, but maybe what I know is obsolete. I need to know that it's obsolete. I need to get the new configuration, and I need to adapt to that. So that's really what this draft is about, knowing that something has changed in the network configuration and being able to adapt to it. And then adapting might be having to go from the status of router to the status of leaf, or even having to leave the network because I cannot operate with my very old software in this network anymore. So I believe this draft, not the way I wrote it, but capability that I tried to introduce with this draft is something that we need as part of Ripple v2, because the configuration will change over time. Next slide, please. Okay, so for now, I mostly got one big review and actually great questions in that review from Raoul, and sorry for the typo in your name, Raoul, I typed the S twice. Basically, Raoul kind of asked about the mechanism that we have with this RCSS. So the RCSS is a sequence counter, right? It's there to basically give a numerical value to a database which has all the possible information. That means which is actually split in a number of options in Ripple. But all those options, there are 5 of them, they are all dealing with configuration database. We are giving a sequence to this global configuration. And so far so good, that's kind of simple. You know you have the latest configuration or not. And if you don't, you ask. That's why we have these things. But when the complexity comes is, I try to make it so that you could get a compressed value, a compressed content of a certain option if it has not changed. Like if for RCSS going from 5 to 6, say the Ripple configuration option has not changed, then it would be possible to just send it and say, here is the RCSS where it was last changed, and if you have this RCSS, you're okay. That's the sort of thing. So this AOO is an option of options. It's an option which is like 4 bytes, which says, I'm an AOO, I'm the AOO for option, for instance, Ripple capability or prefix information or any of those. And here is the RCSS where it was last changed. And so this way, the node needs to maintain a database for each option, which is the RCSS where it was last changed. And that enables to basically make the DIOs much smaller. Because instead of having this problem of sending something in multiple DIOs, as we discussed earlier, here, for every option that has not changed, we can just set the 4 bytes which are abbreviated. It really means same thing as last time with this RCSS. Now, that really means that, okay, we save on DIO, but we have more code complexity because now we need to remember the RCSS for each option. And that's kind of the thing I understand how that you said, hey, that's overly complex. Obviously, if we don't do that, which means we increment the RCSS of each option each time the RCSS is incremented. So considering all the options, not as separate fifths of the configuration, but all the options together are the configuration, then that means that each time you upgrade the RCSS, you need to resend the full content of all the options. Like you need to dump your full link state database, if you like. And well, it's a choice, bigger DIOs versus more code. And that's where we are. Now, if you decide to upgrade everything with the RCSS, it's possible. The draft allows for that, but the thing is, we would need probably a capability to live in a brownfield where some nodes want that and some don't. Because if for instance, most of the nodes support, but one node does not, for that node, each time the RCSS is incremented, we need to resend everything. But for the other nodes, we can send the abbreviated versions of things which have not changed. So the parent needs to know, and that's a capability game. So we basically have three choices here. Either we say, hey, we get rid of the AO altogether, and the RCSS is for the whole configuration, for everybody. Or we enforce that everybody supports the AO, like in the objective function, in the MOPAX, we say it's a MOPAX with AO. Or third, we enable a brownfield where some nodes would do AO and some nodes would not, but then we need a capability. And that's pretty much my big question to the group. Next slide, please. So that's like I said, Raoul, I'm getting, you get muted and unmuted and remuted, and I don't hear you, but I get noise. So if you try to speak, I would not hear you. But I saw that your mic went unmuted.
Yes, I wanted to say something. Is it a good time, or do you have some more slides? So I thought
that's the last slide.
Okay.
That's the last slide. That's the time where questions are.
Can you go back to this last slide? So actually, I prefer option 3 here. The reason being, so you've mentioned that all the options must be sent when RCSS increments. The RCSS will increment only when either of the option actually changes. And if you see prefix information or configuration option or any of those options are sort of they rarely change in my so what I'm trying to say is, even if they change and if the whole set has to be sent again, it's still, as compared to the overall control overhead, it's still a minute overhead. uh, it's still a very less overhead. Now when it comes to complexity, if you see, when it comes to complexity, maintaining an RCSS in context for every such configuration option is a big, it's quite a big deal. Now you've mentioned third option, which is having capability to indicate that. Now what I feel is that eventually having a capability, it does not, it actually further complicates the specification. It does not. Yeah, you got my point, right? So, and one more thing is, let's say in the future, at some point of time, we see that such kind of thing is necessary, because not because of the current set of options that we have, but because of some new options that gets introduced later on. I feel it can be an add-on later on if really we have that kind of need. Is what I think. I feel it the better way is to go simple right now, which definitely handles all the current and future use cases, and future extensibility is possible.
So there are two things, Raoul. The first one is, so playing devil advocates for a minute. First, I must agree that the capability game it's not under control. It goes too far. So it's either we do the AO or we don't do the AO. The value of the AO is that it saves you from sending 3 DIOs and maybe missing some of them and having to deal with that, which is its own complexity. So because, as you said, there will be one option changing, very rare, and it's going to be very rare. So when there is one, there's only one. And so you can compress all the others, basically. And so that means that it will always fit within a DIO. And apart from the very beginning of the network, but the rest of the time it will fit. So we save a lot of energy and bandwidth by doing this. On every damn DIO, even if there are not so often, there still are many of them. So the trade-off is here, bandwidth and energy in the one hand, and having to maintain 5 RCSS instead of 1. And usually when we design REPL, we tended to accept a little bit more complexity, like having 5 sequence counters instead of 1, versus having to send more bytes. Yeah. So you're just advocating for the reverse. So I want to point out that that's what's happening. And so I would really like to consider how many times the options are sent, even just because somebody asks for something. Basically, how much that represents. So that's the big question. I'm not sure that we have the real view of how often those options would be sent and what it costs to not be able to abbreviate some of them. So that's for the DIO game. Now, I believe that your comment only applies to DIO because there is also the DIO. The IOO also allows you to say, all those storing mode DAOs that I sent you, or even the non-storing, everything I sent you last time, still the same. And this saves on every DIO when they are periodic, right? So for that thing, I believe you still want it, I guess. I think that you're not telling me to remove the compression of the DAO. You're just talking about the DIO.
Yes. So sorry for the DAO part also. Is it not the same point? Like if the options are not getting changed, for example, in most of the cases, the target option is going to remain the same. As well as the transit information option might also remain the same. What I'm trying to understand is, won't a single RSCSS work in that case as well?
Yes, it's a single
without
RCSS for all the,
right.
Yes, it's a single RCSS for all the thing in the DAO. But the AOO is how you say, same thing as last time with this RCSS. Everything the same. All this collection of things I sent you in the DAO last time, same.
Okay,
So
okay. Yeah, there we might need. Yeah, okay.
We still need the AOO for the DAO, right? I mean, you don't want to have to descend the whole list of all chat. I mean, all those DAO must in storing mode, right?
Okay. Yeah, for the DAO part, I get it. Yeah. But it still does not mean that for the DIO case. So AO here is identifying an RCSS for the DAO, and in case of DIO, it still can be optional to use AO altogether, right? I mean,
Well, we can remove the compression of the DIO and keep the compression of the DAO. Right? If that's what the group wants to do, then we keep the AOO just for the DAO. We're just making sure that you never said not to compress the DAO.
No, what I'm trying to say is we can aim for DIO compression as well as DAO compression, but only for the normal case, if there is a change that occurs, it is okay to go with slightly more control overhead, given that the complexity is significantly reduced. In case of DIO, at least, because DIO processing is pretty is getting very complex as it is already. AO here will also require the information. So the RCSS in context to every configuration option has to be maintained in a database. It has to be persistent. You cannot afford to lose it, and things like that. On reset again. So I'm wondering all those implications will also be there, right?
If you lose, basically the idea is whether you store the option in persistent storage, in which case you would have to keep the RCSS for it, for each option. Whereas if you don't keep the options in persistent storage, then you lose the option and the associated RCSS together. And that means you don't have it and you start like from scratch. Starting from scratch is okay, right? So I don't see that there is a persistent storage game here. Either everything is in persistent storage or nothing. That's the bottom line. The option, the difference is you have one RCSS, 5 different values for 5 different options, or you have the same value for all the options. And if you have 5 different values for the 5 options, then you can elide. When you ask unicast for some options, you can elide the others. Whereas if you don't have one RCSS per option, you need to ask all the bits of all the options, which might become several disk messages. And you're saying that's not much in the air versus complex, and they have trouble seeing that because there are a lot of DIOs going on. And so I agree.
No, yeah, Pascal, there is no denying that there are a lot of DIOs going in the air, but how many DIOs are going in the air when something changes, right? I mean, once the things have changed and everything comes back to normal, we get the given compression.
Yeah, but imagine, for instance, you don't have persistent storage. Imagine you reboot. And there is a reason why the whole network reboots or something. And then everything will have to be passed again.
That has to be done anyways, right? Because RCSS, if persistent storage is not there, then
yes. Yeah, agreed. It's more like if you lose, well, I'm not convinced in either fashion, right? You seem to be convinced, and you're further than I am because I'm not convinced. Either way, right? My intuition was it's always better to save bandwidth than 5 counters. And now you come back to me and saying maintaining 5 counters instead of 1 is a lot more complex. I did not see that coming, to be honest.
okay.
Because for me, 1 counter or 5 counters is just like a few bytes. And I'm not saying
it's not the size of them; it's the update frequency. And
yes, it's the update frequency.
And how often you have to get them to flash, and what's the effect of failing to get them to flash, right? So with five count, if you have to erase and rewrite a flash block, right?
And same counter, it's 5 value because you keep the value of that counter for every option, but the same counter goes up for whichever the change on whichever the option, right? It's just that
good clarification, but I think what we're trying to say is that it's the rate at which we have to erase flash blocks, and if you have to erase a flash block, then everything in that flash block can be updated. So it actually doesn't. So fewer. It's not how many counters we have or how many values we have. It's the frequency of updates that and the effect of failing to update crashing before you update is the issue as well.
The RCSS is updated at the same rate in both cases, right? Because it's each time there is one change in any of the options. Because there is only one RCSS that covers the whole thing. The question is whether you remember the RCSS of the last change of a given option, which means that you maintain 5 values and they're stored with the option. So when you go to Flash, if you write the option in Flash, then you write the RCSS for it in Flash as well. It's the same block. So I don't see that as representing any difference, unless that makes your block bigger, or all of a sudden you don't stay in one page or something. But otherwise, I don't see difference. Then again, maybe we need to be very clear on the mechanism. The mechanism is there are 5 options today. If you change any of them, RCSS goes up, bang, bang 1. But it is so each option has the last change RCSS associated to it. This option was changed for RCSS 5, and this option was changed for RCSS 6. Now, if the RCSS bumps to 7, for instance, and you were at 5, you would like to know what changed between 5 and 7. So you know your last change RCSS. And so you could do this and say, the last I know is 5. And so all you need to get is the others, right? So what the disk would contain is the one that changed for 6 and for 7, and the other one would be just the abbreviated versions, saying, oh, it's not that we don't sell it, it's just that it's still with the same old value of 5. And so that's what it's used for. But in terms of storage, you just have to store it where you store the option. So if it's not in Flash, you can, if you accept to lose everything, like the configuration, you can lose the RCSS for it as well. Just place it at the same place. You don't need to put it in persistent storage. You only put the RCSS in persistent storage if you put the option in persistent storage. I'm still confused, basically. What I'm saying is I did not find an argument that was convincing either way. I'd like to see one. My intuition was different from the one from Raoul, so that's very interesting. But I didn't see a way to be convinced either way. I'm not convinced with my intuition. I'm not convinced with Raoul's intuition either.
So Pascal, it is possible to theoretically analyze how much of cost savings we can get, assuming an update frequency of X for all these five configuration option. Now, even if we assume that either of this 5 configuration option gets updated once per week, which is not possible. Once per week is too frequent an update for such kind of configuration. So it is possible to theoretically analyze how much of control over its savings we can get, and I'm pretty sure that it will be a fraction of fractional savings, not a major saving. So that's where I was going. Yeah.
Yeah, but the complexity in code is just maintaining 5 values of the counters versus just one. But there's a single counter. It's just what's the latest value for this option at which it was changed. I've not seen that it's so overly complex. So I can buy that it's not a lot of bytes.
Sure. Yeah.
I have trouble finding that it's very hard to code.
Yeah, sure. So at the least, what you're suggesting is if we keep the AO, we will keep it completely decoupled. We will still have an option of having only RCSS or a configuration option or an RCSS per configuration option, right? So if that is the case, then it's okay, I guess. Then as an implementer, I have an option to choose to use either of it, right?
I'm not getting
No, what I'm trying to say is, okay, can I say again? What I'm trying to say is, as an implementer, I want an option to use just the RCSS for the whole configuration option, single RCSS.
When you mean the whole configuration, that all the set of all the options that are about configuration, all 5.
Yes.
There is an RCSS for all 5, right? There's a single counter that's that you keep the same value for all, or you don't.
Yeah. So eventually, I don't want the AO to be mandated. I guess it's not already mandated, but AO to be mandated to be used in case of DIO at least for management of individual configuration option.
It reminds me of your own solution for the other thing, right? When you say, hey, when I don't support this option, then I can send the number, but at least you've received everything. Remember, when you give the list of options you don't support in the list that was asked, right? It's about the role that the AO plays, because if, for instance, you knew your old RCSS, right, and you see that the RCSS changed, the step is to get the new values. And so you ask for this DIO, and the DIO will either be split in several and have all the options in full, or some of them would be replaced by AOO, which makes the DIO much smaller and avoids splitting in several messages. And now you're saying, okay, I prefer have several messages and have all the options in full than having some of the options replaced by the AOO. That's what you're telling me, right? It's less code or something. That's what I just try to understand what the complexity is. And I realize it might be because you don't want to pass an AO on top of all the other options. Is that correct?
Yeah, because so you mentioned the case of multiple DIOs or the DIO fragmentation that can happen. Not fragmentation is not the right term. you might be eventually there might be a reason to send multiple DIOs if we are not able to compress well. But these multiple DIOs will get sent only if there is a change in either of the configuration option, right? And that's
sure. Or when the guys have rebooted and he is asking for everything. Right? I mean, the question is how often does a node reboot and lose everything? So it needs to ask, and since the multicast, you know. So the AO is mostly to avoid having those big DIOs. In terms of code, it doesn't look like a lot, but if having a new option is a very bad thing for you, then I guess I can buy it.
No, it's not about the new option. So it's a new, this new option plays a part for every individual configuration option. So in the RAM, I need to have this configuration option has this version. It has a direct implication on the RAM, right, as well as on the flash. So that's what.
Instead of having 2 bytes for the RCSS, you will have 10 basically because there are 5 options.
Yeah, I mean
10 bytes for the whole configuration of your whole repo, right? It's not like per peer or something. Like I said, you might be right. I'm not saying you're wrong. I still need to be convinced. I've not found the argument that says, oh, it's so complex in terms of code that we don't want to save the energy and bandwidth. Right now, I see that the code is not very complex. That there is no static runtime, or I don't see it. I still don't see the problem. But if the group says go with it, I mean, I'll go either way because I'm not convinced by the AO either. I'm not convinced either way. Well, I would like people to basically that's what the group is for, right? Giving advice, push the balance in one direction. Just that it's very unusual, but we have an opposite intuition here. So I'd like to see more comments and more people with more arguments. Anyway, we're past the hour, but and people, if you could read the draft and come back to Raul and I and give us advice, that would be neat.
We will request the minute.
And there will be right in us at some point. We need to decide if it's a work we want to have and then adopt it.
Sure. I will have a look. I haven't read it yet.
Okay, thank you very much, Pascal. Yeah, we are 15 minutes over time, but I think it worked the discussion, so it was nice. It's nice. We are going to the last slide. We about the next meeting. We want to have in September. Follow what the mailing list state. The next interim meeting will not meet in July. So the action point here will be set to do for the first 2 weeks of September. Do you agree?
Yes.
Okay. So and yeah, I mean
because George, as you said, you did not want in August. So we heard you.
it's fine. It's perfectly fine. After vacation, yeah, it's very nice. Okay.
Need to send postcards.
If I manage to go back to Greece, I will do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Further comments? Okay, we will send the link of the recording. I will stop the recording now.